The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we are webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. If you were not here with us yesterday, I will encourage you, we're putting up a video right now, a time-lapse video, so you can see the entire thing in about 30 seconds. It's pretty amazing. I did shave my head here live on the show yesterday, and it feels very lonely in here today in the studio because yesterday we had more people than we've ever had in the studio. Of course, Mark Christopher Lawrence was here, wonderful star of Chuck. He was Big Mike on Chuck, and now he's playing Unique's dad on Glee. He was here and did the honors of doing the original takedown of my hair. And then we had the wonderful and sweet, and I feel so bad because we didn't spend enough time talking to him, but Lorenzo was with us, a fabulous hairstylist that, what a criminal thing to ask him to do, to not style my hair beforehand, but to do the finishing takedown of getting it all shaved completely off. And Lorenzo joined us from the Onyx studio in Sherman Oaks. So we have to give a big heartfelt thank you to both of those gentlemen for being here to make my head be bald. And of course, we had some fabulous guests. Nancy Alspaugh Jackson from Act Today was with us. Monica Holloway, author of Cowboy and Wills, was with us. And we had the wonderful Alex Plank from WrongPlanet.net. So it was a full house in here. And of course, I was shaving my head for Compassion in Action. It's Autism Awareness Month. And I don't know about all of you, but I like the idea. A lot of people have adopted saying not autism awareness as much, although autism awareness is important, but autism action. Let's take some action. Let's have some movement. Awareness is great, but let's push through and make something even bigger happen. And through a bunch of different events that happened here, we really came up with the idea of compassion in action, taking one action to do something for someone else, showing compassion for someone else. And the autism community, we're always asking people to show compassion to us. I know I certainly am, always asking people to show compassion for my son and for other kids like him who are working so hard to be a part of our world. And it deserves compassion, right? And it was reminded to me how important it is to show compassion for everyone. My world has gotten a little insular and gotten a little bit about autism in the last 7 years because that's where we've been because when our son was diagnosed, that's our world became about autism. I always say when autism came to live at our house. Now, a lot of other things happened in those 7 years. A lot of other things happened. I was thinking about it the other day and how many of my friends were diagnosed with cancer during the years that we were doing intensive ABA in our home. And we tried as best as we could to support those people and to show up in their lives. And there were so many other things, because there's always things that happen to families and that happen in your circle of community. And I will tell you that I shaved my head yesterday for a young man that I had never met and until after the show had never spoken to on the phone. I'm talking about Ryan Oaf. And you can check him out and his cause. It's called Fighting for Ryan. It's on Facebook. You can go there and just put in Fighting for FOR Ryan, RYAN. And Fight for Ryan, excuse me, not fighting for, Fight for Ryan. Thank you, Emily. And you can check out what a lovely family he is. He's a young dad with a young daughter, and there they are, really remarkable young man. And I don't want to get all mushy, but he called yesterday. And so I did for the first time get to speak to him. And can I tell you, what a remarkable young man. And again, I don't want to get all mushy, but I was so, I will say this. There was I come in and said, this is what I want to do. And I want to do this for this young man. And I want to urge people to put compassion in action. And then there were a lot of machinations to make everything happen and to make sure that there were people here. And I've been saying to you guys that when you do something for somebody else, you feel better. And I really believe that that is the truth. And then when I spoke to Ryan yesterday, I will tell you, I just was inspired all anew. I felt great about the fact that we had spent some time talking about this remarkable young man. And I said to him, one of our things on our list of 10 things to do is ask someone, what can I do for you? And I said to him, what can I do for you? And he said, right now, what I appreciate is everybody's prayers. And so he certainly was in my prayers yesterday. And I would ask you if you're a praying person and if you have a prayer to share, include Ryan and his family in your prayers today, because that's what he asked for. And, I will tell you, it just made me want to do more. It reminded me of all the things that I have to be grateful for in this life. And I hope that you too feel that way, and that it encourages you to take action. Show compassion to someone. We gave you a list of things yesterday. We'll go over some more things throughout the week. And we want to showcase your story. What are you doing to show compassion? I hope that you will share it with us. I'm already messy here. And we'd like for you to be on the show. We can Skype you in to talk about what you or your organization is doing to show compassion for other people, because we would love for this to be a movement and to go viral. Compassion in action. What a great way to showcase autism and action and autism awareness. I also have to tell you, in just a second, we're going to talk more about this, but we're going to be joined a little bit later, not in fact, just a few minutes, by Yolanda Baker. Wonderful, wonderful woman who has written this great book. She's an autism mom, by the way, and she wrote this book, Bite Your Bills, Cutting Medical Costs for the Disabled, and the subtitle, very important, How I Got $28,000 Back in Medical Expenses. It's tax time. It is April 9th, and I don't know about the rest of you, but there's, that panic mode of, okay, I didn't get that done. And you want to get as much money as you can back because you've got important things to spend that money on, right? So Yolanda's going to be with us in just a few minutes to talk about this amazing book and how it can help you. And I love the size of this book. And it's hilarious. I know, how could that possibly be? But it is. It's hilarious, and we'll show you why a little bit later. And there are some great pictures and graphics in here that will keep you motivated and moving to understand what's going on. So we're going to be talking with Yolanda in just a few minutes. But I want to remind you guys that this show is meant to be interactive. We talk about autism from a 360-degree perspective, and we want your input for story ideas, for questions that you have. Emily's going to cycle through some of the different ways that you can get a hold of us here, some of the different ways that you can watch the show. There are more happening. It seems like every other day we have new ways to watch the show, because you can watch us on Roku now. But there's only one way to watch us live, and that's www.autism-live.com. When you go there, you see a desktop, and there is a feature there, our live feature. There's a box that says questions we're answering right now. Put your cursor there. You can type, hit enter, and it shows up magically right here on my screen. And you and I can be having a conversation. You can have a conversation with our experts. You can ask Yolanda Baker questions about your taxes and how to include your medical expenses so that you get money back on your taxes. That's all free. You don't have to put in a credit card number. There's no login. What a relief, right? And I thank you all for all the words of encouragement that you put in while they were shaving my head yesterday. It was really very, very sweet. I so appreciated it. Okay. We like to start every morning with something that we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym, and try to make sense of it. When we have someone in the family, diagnosed with autism, we're inundated with a lot of different things all at once, right? There are financial concerns, there's emotional concerns, and then on top of all of that comes the jargon. I have a tickle in my throat. Excuse me. So, we like to do exactly how we teach our children. Take things down to a little bit at a time. Let's do it just a little increment at a time. And what we see is that over time, we build a whole new understanding. And it is important to make friends with the jargon so that you can speak effectively about what's happening, either for yourself or your child. You can speak effectively with experts, and it will facilitate progress. It really will. You get things done faster because you have a better understanding. So let's take a look at what today's term is. It is antecedent. And this is a word that we use a lot here on the show. We talk about antecedents. Whenever we're talking about behavior, we will bring up the term antecedent. So let's look at what our actual definition is. Antecedent is anything that occurs or is present immediately before the behavior of interest. And if we take that down to a working definition, what happened before? So when we're talking about a child, and please understand that this works either way. If you're wanting to increase a behavior, because you saw that your child did something, let's say that your child was kind and considerate and showed compassion to another child, and you go, woohoo, and you want to make sure that you reinforce that because you want it to happen again, right? It's worthwhile to say, what precipitated that? What happened right before that gave the signal to the child that they should be compassionate? Because not only will you want to set that circumstance up again, but you're going to want to set up more circumstances that are different from it so that your child knows how to show compassion in lots of different settings. But what about on the opposite end, on the challenging behavior end? And this is when antecedent we talk about the most, although antecedent is always there before any behavior. But when we have a challenging behavior and we're trying to change it, antecedent is a very powerful thing because we can manipulate antecedents. So what happened right before your child completely lost it? What was the thing that happened? Was it that you put a demand on your child? Was it that the temperature changed? Were you in a different location? What happened right before? Did someone say, give me the crayon? Did someone, put their hand on your child's shoulder and push down? What was the thing that happened? And of course, the circumstance that comes to mind for me, it was a couple of months ago that I was at my son's school and I was at the gate. And there is a lovely young man who talks to me every day that I'm there, and just one of my favorite people to see. He's a couple of grades ahead of my son, but we always have a lovely conversation. And very sunny young man, very kind and polite and considerate and very well-mannered. And I happened to be walking out the gate one day, and I saw this young man talking to another young man, and the boy that I didn't know put his hand up on the other boy's shoulder and did it kind of like, like very friendly, but like, yeah, on his shoulder. And the well-meaning child that I have known for a long time took off his big, heavy backpack full of books and started swinging like he was going to clock the other kid in the head. And I, the mom and me and the former teacher and me jumped in and went, whoa, 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 what's going on here, right? And there were other people who were there who, there was like sort of instant yelling, and I was like, everybody calm down. Because it was clear to me that because they had been standing there talking very nicely, but something had happened in that moment. And of course, upon investigation and talking to these boys, both of who were verbal, right? It became clear that what had happened was that earlier in the day, there'd been a discussion about the fact that the boy that I know very well had a sunburn. But that conversation had happened hours before at lunch. And the other boy, of course, had forgotten it. Who would remember that? And so he was just clapping him on the shoulder to say goodbye. But in that moment, it was such horrible pain that, and the boy that I knew said, he knows I got a sunburn. Why would he have done such an idiot thing? So he thought he meant him harm, that he'd done it deliberately and was going to clock him in the head with the backpack. Once we know what the circumstances are, it often puts things in a context. And for our kids on the autism spectrum, if we can figure out what the antecedent is, sometimes we can modify the antecedent so that we get a different behavior. right? And that's a really, really powerful tool. Sometimes we talk about front loading our children. Sometimes we tell them social stories. Sometimes we talk to them about things to get them ready so that in the moment things don't come at them in such a way. Lots of different strategies for antecedent modification, but it's a very, very powerful tool if we can figure out what happened before. And you know, on the show, when I've talked to you in the past about when we're sorting out why a behavior happens, because behaviors are not random. They seem like it, but they're not. And we make a 3-column piece of paper and we put the A, B, and C. The A stands for antecedent, what happened before. The B is the behavior and the C is the consequence. And so we're always looking at what happened right before. What was the thing? And so in the circumstances I was telling you, it was the child clamping down on his shoulder. Antecedent. That happened, triggered the events that were going to happen. Can we change that? We absolutely can. There are lots of things that we can do to change that moment. So antecedent, it's a word. If you have a child on the spectrum, it's going to be very important to you. But I would argue that it's important for all of us, whether you're on the spectrum or your child's on the spectrum or not. Being able to look at behavior and understand, okay, so what happened right before that precipitated this? Very, very powerful tool. All right, we always have a question of the day for you, and today is no different. Our question today has to do with compassion in action. If you could do anything for someone else, what would it be and who would it be for? When you think about all the people in your life, and if there was someone that you could do something for, who would it be and what would it be? A really interesting question, right? For many years, it would have had something to do with my son. That there were so many things that I wanted to do for him that I was struggling to make happen for him. I have to say that I don't know that would be the case anymore. That's how well my son is doing now. Of course, there are things that I still want to do for him, but there are many people in my life that I see that it's a little bit more urgent. Not to minimize my son at all, but he's just doing so well. You know what I mean? So that would be a difficult question for me. Who would I do something for, and what would it be? And I guess, you know, today what's uppermost in my mind, and I will, is to pray for Ryan. That's what I would like to do. So, but we'll be interested to see what you guys wrote in. We haven't had a chance to look at your question, answers to the question of the day for a couple of days, but we'll take a look at them a little bit later on today. All right. We always have a topic for our week, and I'm sure you can imagine what our topic is this week. We're going to be talking about it all week long, compassion in action. How can we put this into play? And I want to remind you of 3 things. These are the 3 core things for me. When you show compassion to somebody else, I can guarantee you that out of all the possible things that can happen, you will feel better about whatever is happening in your life. You will feel like, wow, what I have going on in my life is pretty powerful and it's pretty amazing. So that's one thing. The second thing, when you put compassion in action, not only are you helping somebody else, but you're teaching other people how you want to be treated. That if you're showing compassion, that's something that you want back too. I do believe in the law of karma. What you put out comes back times 2. So what a great way to teach all the people in your life, hey, I'm a compassionate person and I'm ready to receive compassion back. It's a great thing that we model for our children, but it's a great thing to model for everyone in society. And then the third thing is that if people see the compassion that you take, I believe that it will make them want to take action too. Let's make compassion in action a viral thing this April Autism Awareness Month. That's the soapbox that I'm on. Okay, so we have a lot of different things that are going on today and some very exciting things. We have a healthy eating tip for you because it is Tuesday, but we have a very special guest. Yolanda Baker is going to be joining us in just a couple of minutes talking about her book, Bite Your Bills, Cutting Medical Costs for the Disabled. Really fun. I know, how can I say that? A fun book about how you can save money on medical costs. You won't want to go away because we're going to talk about how that could be. And then in the next hour, we're going to be joined by Evelyn Gould. She's a BCBA. We call this Making Room with Evelyn. Evelyn comes in and helps us to put the pieces back together, both for ourselves and if we're working with a child on the spectrum, for them as well, to make things smoother, to move into acceptance, to move into action. It's a wonderful time. I saw her in the hallway earlier today. I said, I'm so excited you're coming in today. I always feel better after I've had a chance to talk with Evelyn, and I know you guys have written in that too. So she'll be taking your questions in the second hour today. But we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to be joined via Skype by Yolanda Baker. This is an autism mom who has written an awesome book, a guideline of how we can save money and defer some of the costs for medical expenses for our children with disabilities. It's a great time. It's tax time, a great time to be talking about this. So stick with us. Back in just a few minutes. Currently, in the United States, 1 in 88 children is affected by autism. 1 in 88 means something different when your child is the one. Recovery is possible. Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, host of Autism Live, an online show about autism broadcast by CARD, the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. I'm also the mother of a child with autism, my beautiful son, Jem. You know our old joke, guess what?
Chicken butt.
Chicken butt. So we're going to take the chickens. But things weren't always so easy. I remember when Jem was first diagnosed with autism. I used to lay awake at night in bed and pray for someone or something that could help us to get our child back. My prayers were answered by Dr. Doreen Graham-Pichet and the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. CARD treats autism and other related disorders using the principles of ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis, which is the only scientifically proven effective treatment for autism. It is also recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics and the U.S. Surgeon General. About a year after we started treatment with CARD, we were able to see tremendous improvement, and we got our child back.
What grade are you in?
Second.
You are a smart cookie, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Do you like school?
Yeah.
Do you have any good friends?
Yeah, Oscar.
Oscar is your best friend?
Yeah.
And my child is just one of thousands to benefit from CARD ABA therapy. Across the nation and around the world, children are making amazing progress and being given the keys to unlock their full potential.
We are extremely grateful for the amazing job CARD has done in helping our daughter. Our daughter today, just in 4 months, I think is a totally different child than when she started with CARD. I kind of see it as, it seems like her brain in a way was asleep, and now that we've gotten so many services, we've seen her wake up.
Did you have some glasses?
Recovery is possible if you take the right steps, if you're willing to put in all the hard work. And 7.5 years, yeah, it's a lot of work. It's worth every little bit, and CARD's been there with us every step of the way.
I have 2 children with autism. I can't imagine a day without CARD or the therapists. They've been so instrumental in helping us with our kids and shaping their lives and helping us help them.
Thank you, Christina Big Alex.
Thank you, Jackie and Mariana.
We've tried other things before ABA, but the most beneficial thing has been ABA services, and I'd be the first person to tell any newly diagnosed family that you have to contact an ABA provider, and if you're lucky enough to have CARD, you're very blessed.
Recovery from autism is absolutely a possibility. We've been recovering children for over 20 years. It's just a matter of identifying the child's medical needs, understanding the child's sensory issues, and then teaching the child all of the skills they need in order to function normally.
We know there's hope for autism. Autism is treatable, and recovery from autism is possible.
Welcome back to Autism Live. You know, it's tax season, and I always like to say that if you are an autism family, you've got somebody on the autism spectrum, then you're going through the same things that everybody else is going through, but sometimes you have extra issues and extra stress. And I do believe that tax time is an extra stressful time because every penny that you spend, you're aware of and thinking, how can I do this better? Because you want to be able to put as much money into your child's treatment as you can. Well, we've got Yolanda Baker joining joining us, and she's a huge resource for us. She is the author of Bite Your Bills, Cutting Medical Costs for the Disabled. The subtitle, listen to this, How I Got $28,000 Back in Medical Expenses. Isn't that somebody you want to sit and have coffee with? Well, now you can. So Yolanda is joining us via Skype, and I want to remind everybody that you can be asking questions via our live feature. First of all, Yolanda, thank you for joining us today. I'm so thrilled to have you here.
Oh, same here, Shannon.
So exciting to be able to talk to you. So I've been reading this book, and I was saying earlier, one of the things about this is that it's a funny book. How on earth can you have written a book about being able to save money on medical expenses for disabled children and manage to make it funny? I think you deserve an award just for that.
Well, before I was an accountant, I actually did a couple of amateur nights in college. I bombed, but that helped me practice.
Well, I have to say, you do a great job of giving really good, solid information and then giving us something to laugh at. It's really, you have these pictures, these fake tips, and we have a couple that Emily can show. They're very funny, these fake budgeting tips. Here's the fake tax tip number 1759. Retail therapy is not a medical expense. And it's really, and the pictures are cute. I love this one too. Fake tax tip 34A. Your dog is not your dependent no matter how cute he is. And it's a very cute dog. I have to love that. So, and I always appreciate something that's got a sense of humor, and it's very good for keeping your attention going, because it has the potential, if you hadn't been so clever about it, to be a dry subject, but really important to those of us who've got kids on the autism spectrum. Now, you're an autism mom, is that correct?
That's right.
And how old is your child now?
Luke is 7.5.
Awesome. And I love that not only did you find your way of figuring out, okay, this is what I'm going to do to save myself money, but then you gave us a pathway to figure this out for ourselves that's, detailed. You call it the Bite Your Bills method.
Right.
And why? Why is it the Bite Your Bills?
BITE is an acronym, and BITE stands for budgeting, insurance, taxes, and employer-sponsored plans such as health savings accounts. And when I was setting up this method, I wanted something easy for people to remember. And I was driving down the highway and I realized, oh, it's BITE. Of course, I almost ran into the car in front of me, but I was able to make this system work. And I think it's an easy way to remember it.
Absolutely. And you go through that here in the book, but it's such a great resource. First of all, how can people get this book?
They can go to my website at biteyourbills.com.
Okay.
And there's a section called Buy the Book. You can also go through Amazon, but I would really recommend that you go to my website because I'll be able to send you more information. If you want, you could subscribe to my free kind of daily blog, and I usually have helpful hints, not just for the tax season, but this is a year-round system that will hopefully help you save on healthcare costs.
Yeah, and there are so many benefits to going to your website because you have a great deal of information there, and then people can find out because you're also doing webinars where you're detailing and explaining things for people, and I understand that you're doing a number of webinars this week. Tell us a little bit about those webinars.
Sure. The webinars that I'm having are all free, and they're going to talk about the tax season. I'm having 2 webinars tentatively on Friday. However, if both registrations are full, I will create more live webinars. I'm also going to have one on the 15th for those who are doing things at the very last minute.
I love it.
But all 3 of them are the same. We're going to talk about last-minute tax tips for special needs families. And
Awesome.
I'm hoping it'll run no more than 45 minutes plus a 15-minute Q&A at the end.
Great. Well, what a great service to our community to do free webinars. Absolutely amazing. And I would encourage, so if they want to sign up for the webinar, they can do that through your website as well?
That's right.
Okay. So free webinar, 2 of them on Friday, you said?
That's right, in the mornings or in lunchtime.
Okay, so people should register for those as quickly as they possibly can. I I want to come back and talk about some tips that you've got in here, because it is tax season. We're down to the wire. But you and I talked the other day, and you said there's still some things that you can do to help yourself at this point in the game, and I'm really interested to find out about those. And then a little bit later, we're going to talk about some of the different things that you detail here in the book about being able to save on your medical expenses. Really eye-opening things that I was not aware of. So these are great, great tips. So we're going to ask people to stick with us. We're going to have a short break and be back more with Yolanda Baker from Bite Your Bills right after this.
Hi, I'm Bryce Myler, and I'm the Contracts Director for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. I've been here for about 5 years. CARD has several employees with many years of insurance experience, dealing with insurance, dealing with pre-authorizations, dealing with discovering whether there's coverage or not. So we have more experience than any ABA provider that I've ever come across. So for a prospective client, somebody that may be interested in, ABA therapy and what CARD has to offer, we have a special 800 number, and you call that number. They will talk to you about what we have to offer, how ABA works. He'll ask you for the front and back of your ID card, and then we check to see if you do or do not have coverage. If you have coverage for ABA therapy, we try to do whatever we can to set it up where we can bill for you and you don't have to fight with the insurance company every month to get your claims paid. For California residents, we recently did a series of insurance trainings all over the state, and you can click on the link below to watch pretty much the full presentation. It has a lot of information, how you can get your insurance company to comply with what they're supposed to do, understanding the networks, and many other valuable pieces of information.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We have Yolanda Baker with us via Skype. Yolanda is the author of Bite Your Bills, Cutting Medical Costs for the Disabled, subtitled How I Got $28,000 Back in Medical Expenses. And right before the break, Yolanda was mentioning that she's got some free webinars that she's doing this week. And Yolanda, we had a question from a viewer that they want to know, your webinars are happening on Friday, and people can register for them at biteyourbills.com, but the person wants to know, will you be recording the webinars to be able, if they're not available on Friday, to listen to them at a different date?
I will not be recording them because what I've found out in the past is that I'm always learning something new. Okay. Now, I will be more than happy to have usually a 10 to 12 page pamphlet to send to people after the tax season about tax tips and other information.
Cool.
But if she's unable to make one of the webinars, I'm going to have at least 3 through the 15th. So I'm hoping she'll be able to make it, and if not, she can always email me and I'll try to answer her question.
Okay, cool. Very good answer. All right, so let's take a second here to talk about some of the things. It is tax season, and a lot of us, I was saying to you before, I'm a last-minute Lulu, always doing things at the very last minute, procrastinator extraordinaire. So, but sometimes I feel like that's a bad thing because I don't have enough time to get things together and maybe I'm missing something. Now, you said that even at this late date, there are still things that we can do to help ourselves on our taxes. What kinds of things can we do?
Well, I think one of the most important things to remember is don't panic. Do not stress out over this time. There are always things you can do. One of the things you can do is just be as prepared as you can as possible. There's always a case of you're going to miss some documents, you're going to miss some receipts. Now, what I would advise people to do is if they are in a panic mode right now and they don't have all their documents, I'd like to talk a little bit about if you believe you owe, because that ties in with if you don't have all your documents together. Now, if you believe you owe, then what you need to do is, to the best of your ability, find out how much you owe and pay it on time. If you cannot pay the full amount, I do have information on my website about who to talk to rectify this. You can go to the IRS website and find that information. They have installment plans. They can talk to you through this and hopefully guide you through this tough time. And then what you need to do is, after the 15th, you have until April 15th until the extension deadline of October 15th to find as many medical expenses as you can. So give yourself that time from April to October to find as many expenses as you can. Once you've gathered those up, talk with your tax professional to see if that is enough to get you maybe some sort of a refund.
Okay.
Or maybe lower your tax liability.
Okay, so correct me if I'm following what you're saying. It's absolutely important that if you feel like you owe, that you've got to get the payment in or make a payment arrangement. That's the thing that you don't want to put off.
That's right. Do not put that off. I know it's a bit scary if you owe and you find out that you don't have the funds to pay it, but you do need to contact the IRS either on or before the 15th. Be honest, explain the situation. I think the IRS is trying to show themselves as a kinder, gentler agency. These are pretty tough times, and I think they recognize that. So don't be afraid to contact them. If you can, though, if you're already working with a tax professional, talk with them before talking with the IRS and see what they can recommend.
Okay.
But if you're not working with a professional, you need to talk with the IRS.
But even if you're filing an extension and you think that you owe, it's important that you pay that tax bill or make the arrangement for the payments. But what you just said that I'd never heard before is that if you've, correct me if I heard this right, so if you file the extension, pay the amount that you think that you do, and then take that time to see if you can't use your book and see if you can't turn the number around and maybe get the money back.
I find that surprising but true. I've never read that in a tax book or recommended to me by any tax professional saying, well, you know, maybe you should take this time and look for your expenses. And I think the reason why they don't recommend that is because most families out there do not have the amount of medical expenses that special needs families do.
There you go. There you go. So maybe they're just not thinking about it.
I don't think they're thinking about it because the majority of their clients don't have those huge medical expenses.
Well, that's why we needed you, Yolanda. That's exactly why we needed you. Okay, great. So that's something that's helpful already. And then for people who think that they're not sure whether they owe, think maybe that they might be getting a refund, it's how important is it for them to get their taxes in by April 15th, or can they file for an extension?
Well, I'm probably going to do that. To be perfectly honest, I haven't filed the taxes yet. We are due a refund. I'm fairly certain of that. But we're going to file an extension. You might want to talk with your CPA about that, just to make sure that that extension is filed properly, or your tax professional. And I just want to mention real quick is that for certain families out there under a particular income, there are some free clinics throughout the United States called VITA. That's Volunteer Income Tax Assistance. Those programs are throughout the U.S., and they can help you get your taxes done for free. And again, there are some income requirements, but if you haven't done so already and you feel as if you can't afford a tax preparer, give them a call, contact them. They're going to be pretty busy, but they are there to help you.
You know what? I'm so glad that you brought that up, because I have to tell my personal horror story that when I think it was when we were in year 2 after my son had been diagnosed with autism, and I was so completely overwhelmed and terrified. Tax season came, and I don't even think I was aware of it. Oh. It like came and went, and I wasn't aware. I didn't know whether I owed or whether we were owed money, but I knew that I just couldn't do it, and I didn't have any money to go to a tax professional. And I just kind of buried my head in the sand. And then a couple of years later, I then got a lovely notice from the IRS when I had done my other taxes, and they said, you missed 2 years here. And I finally sat down and did them and discovered that I had been owed a huge refund, but because I got them in late, I didn't get the refund. And that was
hearing stories
isn't
like
that horrible?
Oh, gosh.
And that was money that could have gone to my son's treatment. And so for everybody who's out there, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if I had known about the VITA and been able to go to them, I don't think that would have happened to me, because I wouldn't have felt like I was alone, and I didn't know about it at that time. So are you aware of where people can go in their area to look? Is there a website for VITA?
Well, I don't know the exact VITA website, but I do know that if you go to irs.gov and in the search field type V as in Victor, ITA, VITA, you might be able to pull that up. I think you can also just do a basic internet search.
Like a Google search, yeah.
But there are, at least in Austin, there are so many clinics out there, and they are so helpful.
Yes, and I know that they're here. I now know that they're here in Los Angeles, but when I needed them, I did not know about it. So I'm so glad that you brought that up. Any other thing that you can think of in terms of if you're there? I know you've got. I probably won't be able to find it in the book, but you say if all of your medical expenses are in a shoebox, something along the lines of if it's all in a shoebox, it might be time to call in an organization expert.
Oh, I think that's actually that has, well, it doesn't really have to do with taxes, but at the same time, let me read the quote here. If your medical bills are stashed in your closet and your shoes are stored in your file cabinet, you may need the help of a professional organizer.
Yes. I think that's a little close to home for me. This is what I think that is. But if you have a shoebox full of receipts, do you need to feel bad about that if you're going to a tax professional, or is it perfectly okay?
Well, what I suggest in the book is go with the organizational style that best suits you.
Great advice.
But to be honest, putting all your receipts in a shoebox is really not organization. More like if you feel most comfortable with placing your receipts for, let's say, your optometrist in a file folder and putting that in the file cabinet, or maybe you feel comfortable doing that plus scanning the receipts, or maybe you feel comfortable doing all that plus doing another storage method. Whatever you feel most comfortable with, in which you can easily obtain those documents without having to go to spend an hour looking for them. Do what is most comfortable for you.
Yeah, because paper and receipts can be so overwhelming, I find.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'd like to take one more break, and then I want to come back and talk about some of the things that you recommend for managing your medical care, making sure that you don't make mistakes that are costly, because you detail some things in here that I've never heard of before that I just think are brilliant. So I want to talk about some of those. Again, great book, Bite Your Bills, Cutting Medical Costs for the Disabled. Yolanda is the author of this book, and you can get it at her website, biteyourbills.com. While you're there, you want to sign up for these webinars that she's doing this week that are very informative and free. You can't beat that, Yolanda. What a great service that you're doing for our community. So those of you at home, stick with us. We're going to take a break and come back more with Yolanda Baker after this.
Autism used to affect 1 in every 10,000 children. Now it affects 1 in every 91 kids.
TACA is one of 5 organizations helping families living with autism today.
Our kids came back to life. There's a whole community out there, and now we're a part of it.
Oh, TACA has a place for me.
To find TACA, go to www.tacanow.org.
Please.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're talking with Yolanda Baker, author of Bite Your Bills, Cutting Medical Costs for the Disabled, subtitled How I Got $28,000 Back in Medical Expenses. Yolanda, thank you so much for being with us. And I want to remind everybody that Yolanda is doing some free webinars this week and potentially next week. You can sign up to be a participant in the free webinar by going to her website, biteyourbills.com. Go there and register so that you make sure that you get a spot in those free webinars. Yolanda, I wanted to talk to you about, you detail some things in here because you're an autism mom and you learned as you went. I love the fact that you're so honest that you say, okay, this is how much money I was able to get back in this year, and then I learned, and this is how I got even more back. And you let us benefit from what you've learned. And one of the things that blew my mind immediately was this idea of setting up a medical expense checking account for each member of the family that you're going to have medical expenses for. Talk to us about why that is so pivotal. This is just a great idea.
Now, I must remind everybody out there that This is simple checking account. That's my terminology, the medical savings checking account. I think it's important because it just talks, it's another step in being organized, especially if you're the parent of a special needs child. Because before I did that, it was such a mess. Tax season was twice as difficult, not having all the expenses and all the deposits in one checking account. So when I created that for my son Luke, I thought, well, this is going to make things so much easier. And I do my best to put as much spare change in that account, any sort of, any sort of profits and royalties I get from the book, I deposit it into his account as much as I can, so that any non-reimbursed medical expenses I could take from that savings account or from that checking account. And I also do my best to take a portion of our tax return refund and place it into that account. I think it's just so important. I think that's one of the foundations to having a year-round medical savings. I just think it's so important to start.
I think it's a brilliant idea, and just in terms of the paperwork that, and especially nowadays when checking accounts, and they'll give you the debit card that comes with each checking account. So help me to understand, though, is the idea that you put money in there, and then if you're going and you're having something done that's medical and you're paying the medical bill from it, that you pay it from that account, so that you don't have to be tracking things and picking out, you made your mortgage payment in this account and you made you paid the difference in the bill for the MRI, and it's just all on one account.
Yeah, I have to admit that sometimes I do use my other checking accounts or perhaps even a credit card if I'm not prepared to pay for a particular item, but I need to pay it at that time.
Yeah.
But I do my best to try to pay as many of my son's non-reimbursed expenses from that account.
I think it's a brilliant idea. Talk to me a little bit about, because you detail in here about what happens if your child is on a special diet. Because a lot of us are on the GF, CF, and sometimes SF diet, and it's expensive. It is very expensive.
It can really rack up.
It really, really can. And you have some recommendations about that as well. So tell us a little bit about what you recommend when you're doing that kind of a diet.
Well, one of the ways I get my audience interested, especially at seminars, is I started off with, did you know bread's deductible? And everybody's like, what? I thought this was going to be a boring tax seminar. But with medical food items, the first thing you have to do in order to get anything deducted is that it has to be prescribed by your physician, whether it's your pediatrician or a psychiatrist. You need that note, that prescription from the doctor stating that your child has this particular condition, which requires him to be on this particular diet for the remainder of his life. And we have a prescription from our pediatrician stating that Luke needs to be on a gluten, casein, and soy-free diet. And so what we do is we keep that prescription in our files, and you don't need to, by the way, you don't need to submit that prescription when you're submitting your tax forms, although you do want to have that if you're submitting this information to your tax preparer, because he will probably need to see that.
Okay.
So you have your prescription, that's where you start off. Where the tax deduction comes in is that you take your medical food item, let's say it's a loaf of bread, and this is perhaps rice bread that your doctor said this is the medical food item that you need. So let's say that loaf of bread is $5. Well, what you need to do is compare it with a regularly priced comparable food item such as a regular loaf of bread. And let's say a regular loaf of bread is currently $2. Well, what you do is you take the difference, which is $3. That $3 is the tax-deductible portion of your medical food item.
Okay.
Now, you do need to keep your receipts. And what I have available for my subscribers to my monthly newsletter is I have a customized medical food database that I created for myself. And I also have instructions in the book on how to create a medical food database. It's a little more complicated than that because you're going to also have to be dealing with liquid items, and that gets a little tricky. But if you follow the rules in my book, then that difference is the tax-deductible portion of the medical food item.
Well, and I have to say that I love that here in the book you talk about how much time can you afford. And you're very realistic about it that, you know, time is money. We hear it over and over and over again. And that it will take some time to put these things together. But when you start to add up for us in the book about what kind of money it ends up being, I mean, we get to $28,000. That's nothing to sneeze at. And,
no, it isn't.
And how much time would you spend making $28,000? It might be worth it to make the database. I mean, I think we all have that initial reaction and go, oh, with all the other things I have going on, do I honestly have the time to do that? But if it's going to save you $10,000 to $28,000, suddenly you make the time, right?
Right. I mean, those little things can really add up, and that is so important for special needs families because there are a lot of little things.
Yeah, and I would imagine that the time, the investment of creating the database, you know, that it's more time intensive in the beginning, but once you've got it up and running, it starts to run itself and it gets a little bit more efficient.
That's right, and I'm hoping that by the summertime I will have an iPad app to help people out.
Nice. Oh, Yolanda, that's a great idea. I also love in here one of the things that you talk about, and I looked at it with shame about things to do with your health coverage, mistakes not to make. It's here on page 19, and honestly, as a mom, I appreciate that you say I made a lot of mistakes with my health insurance plan the first year of my son's diagnosis. The fact that you admit that already, then I want to read what you say, because you're not trying to be somebody who, oh, I've done it perfectly my entire life. I came out of the womb and understood how to do it, because I sure didn't. And you say, I can't put all the blame on my insurance company. Here were some of my mistakes. Not calling my insurance provider before procedures took place. Not knowing how many times a medical procedure was covered. Not obtaining a prescription from my son's health practitioner for a particular medical procedure. And already I'm thinking, I know I can get a prescription for the diet, but I have never taken the time to do that, Yolanda. You go on to talk about making sure that I read and understand the explanation of benefits. That makes me want to run screaming into the street with my hair on fire.
You too?
Yeah, because I look at that and I go, oh, help me. Thank heavens I work with people who can explain it to me. Not following up in a timely manner to resolve denied claims. I think the insurance companies count on us to do that.
Yes. I absolutely agree with you on that. They want us to be, well, I shouldn't be so cold. What I should say is that they want us to be as prepared as possible. Unfortunately, we're not as prepared as we can be. And so, of course, if we're not as prepared as we can be, the insurance company has every right to say, I'm sorry, we don't have the necessary information, or we just cannot cover this. Yeah. But there are always ways around that. And I explain that both in my webinars and in the book on how to deal with that.
Yeah. I love this next one. Accepting the price of the procedure instead of shopping around and negotiating a reduced price. Again, that wouldn't even occur to me, Yolanda. So really, really helpful. And the last one, not insisting the denied claims be covered and not researching if the insurance made a mistake. And again, it's time. And you don't mamby-pamby with that at all. You say this does take some time to do it, but look what it can be worth. And I think I can't imagine how much more you were able to do with your child with that $28,000.
It really helped. Thank God I have a husband who's a bit more assertive than I am in regards to that, because I didn't see it initially, but my husband saw that there were perhaps some mistakes in our coverage. And he did his research, so did I, but he did his research and he explained to the insurance company in no uncertain terms that a particular procedure should have been covered. And we were very insistent, well, he was. And eventually they conceded, they agreed that it should have been covered. Well, and I also talk about that in the book and in the webinar. If you don't have the time, or if you feel you're not assertive enough, or if you feel as if you don't have the knowledge or the know-how to get through to your insurance carrier, there are some resources to help you out with that.
Awesome. And I have to say, You know, we all have an inkling that probably, or we fear that probably there's more money that we could be saving to put towards our child's medical expenses. But I think that we don't have time to invent the wheel, and what you've done is given it to us here. So if you're interested in knowing more ways that you could be saving money, instead of going and trying to do all the research, because you very openly say that this is what, like 6 years worth of, 5 years worth of research, trial and error, that you've discovered these different methods?
It is, and to be honest, it's not a complete book. It's merely a guidebook to get you going, but I'm hoping it will be enough to allow people to know where to start.
Yeah. Well, I think it's amazing, and I think that your webinars sound awesome, and I want to encourage everybody to get your book. Go to biteyourbills.com, get this book. It's going to help you. We haven't covered, we've covered like 2 pages worth of what's in here. It's really pretty amazing. And I love the fact, I love the picture on your book, Yolanda, because it's got the piggy bank, but there's the combination lock on the side. And I think for a lot of us, we feel like that's the real deal. That what's the combination to being able to make this work? People ask me all the time, how on earth do you make this thing work and financially? And I think this is a great place to start. And then I would encourage people to check out your free webinars, get the help and support that you're offering to the community.
Yes, the webinars are free. There's at least 3 going on through the 15th. I will probably set up more if there is a demand for it.
Awesome. Yolanda, what a joy and a treat, and I hope that we can have you back on the show. I know you're going to be busy with your webinars and with tax time, but maybe we can have you back on the show to talk about some of the other things here for getting yourself set up to save money on these medical expenses, because we need this money. I thank you so much for your service to the community. You're an awesome autism mom.
Thank you so much, Shannon. Same here.
All right, you take care. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Again, I want to urge people, get this book. It's really incredible. Biteyourbills.com and sign up for those free webinars. We know that there's at least 2 on Friday, but she's saying that if there are more people, she will make a 3rd one. So Yolanda Baker, go to biteyourbills.com. We're going to take a break. Are we going to the A word, Emily? We are going to the A word. This is an amazing documentary being made here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, following a little boy, Jack Riley, who was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2. He is significantly older now. He's 4, but we're watching the series from the beginning. We're almost halfway, so to where the series is going, but we're seeing a time when Jack Riley is making a great deal of progress. He's got all this information, all these labels, and he's starting to put them together into longer and longer sentences. This is a thrilling time in a child's development, but it's also a scary time for the parents, because you will cycle through some challenging behavior, you'll have big progress, and then a new roadblock will show itself, because when a child is making progress, it's not always going to be hearts and flowers and roses. So let's take a look. This is the A word.
A, B, C, D, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W.
Talking a lot this morning.
Now I down my ABCs. Next time,
Won't you?
no say sleep.
That's right, kiddo. Very good. Hey, Jack Riley, 1 more minute. Say okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Do you want to play something else for now? What do you want to play?
Pancake.
You want to play pancakes? Oh, is this the sign for pancakes? What do you want to work for, Jack Riley? Do you want to work for puzzle, for trains, for jumping on the bed? What do you want to work for? More jumping? Okay.
Pancake. Pancake.
Okay. Sit down. Sit down here, though.
Pancake.
You want pancakes? Can you say that better? Say, I want pancakes.
I want pancake.
Okay, should we go see where the pancakes are then? Okay, all right. Let's go find Dad. Come on. Come with me. Walk with me. And we'll go find Dad, okay?
right. Can you open the door? Turn. There you go. Nice. Let's go see where those pancakes are. Say, I'm hungry. Ask you quick questions, okay? All right. Okay, look. Okay. What's your name? What's your name? Nice job. How old are you? 8. Good job. Sit down, though. Okay. Where do you live?
Jessica teaches Jack Riley other social ID questions such as where do you live and what's your last name.
There you go. Nice job. Here you go. Slow down. There you go. Hi.
You look cute. I love you.
Group kiss. Group kiss. Ready? 1, 2. Oh, nice hands.
Nice hands. Nice hands. Nice hands. Yes,
Nice hands.
Nice hands get you more attention than bad hands.
Big brother. Who's big brother?
Who's a big brother? Yes.
Where's the little sister?
Where's little sister?
There. Is she here? Is that
Right
little
here.
sister?
Right, that's right.
Can she have a kiss? Can little sister have a kiss? Thank you.
I hope.
Jack Riley is needing less prompting to appropriately gain attention. Jessica only gestures to get him to ask. They introduced the skill about 7 weeks ago, and it's becoming less contrived and is occurring naturally in situations. Here's a look from 7 weeks ago, when Jessica first introduced gaining attention. In the beginning, she tempts Jack Riley with an item he wants, then prompts him the whole way, gesturing and physically showing him what to do and what to say.
Jessica. I want pancakes. Hey, look at me when you say it. Say, I want pancakes.
As time goes by and the skill becomes more natural, the prompting will completely fade away.
Ready? Okay, show them how you can use a straw. You gotta go all the way. Show me. There you go. Good job.
Feeding used to be very time-consuming and difficult for Cheryl and Mike. Jack Riley would swat away food fed to him and would refuse to self-feed. He now feeds himself and even uses a fork. His diet, though, is still limited, but it's growing. Drinking has also been an issue for Jack Riley. He's typically only drank out of baby bottles or bottles with a hard nipple top. They've tried getting Jack Riley to drink from a cup, but every time they would present it, he would try to lap it up like a cat, anticipating all the fluid to come rushing at him. Now they have introduced drinking from a straw, so he has an item to drink from that is age appropriate.
I'm gonna suck it up. You want to do that again?
Yeah.
Want to do that again?
One more time, and then you can play.
Okay.
Yay! Very good, Jack. Here you go.
You guys got that exact same pitch level there. I don't know how you duplicate.
Do you want the purple iPhone? Okay.
Okay. What's the matter?
You can have applesauce.
Hey.
You can have it. You can have it. Come here. Can you show me? Bite for mommy.
Your turn. Do you not? Jack Riley, say, I don't want banana. Okay. What do you want then? What do you want then? I want.
Okay.
One of the food items Jack Riley eats a lot of are bananas. For some reason, though, seeing a banana really upsets Jack Riley. He enjoys eating it, but hates the sight of it. One of the issues is that biting solid food is very aversive to him.
Fear of the banana. Someday we'll tell him he eats one every day.
More awareness than it was in the yogurt, so we have to go in baby steps with it. That's fine with me.
History. I might drink the whole thing.
With like no prompting, no.
Yeah,
you're right.
Okay, kiddos. See ya. Have a good weekend.
Say thanks, Miss Jessica.
You say bye. Hey, can you say bye, Jessica?
Look at her. Where is Jessica? Where is Jessica? There she is.
Just in case you were wondering.
You're Jessica. You are.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Have a great weekend, Jessica.
What a beautiful family, and we got to interview them. It wasn't long enough. I could have spent 6 hours with them because there's so much I'd love to say and talk to them about, but we didn't have 6 hours. But lovely to meet them, and I admire this family so much. I want to talk a little bit about what we get used to, because so many different things in that particular episode, all the different things that he's working on, and that we're seeing all the different progress. But I wanted to bring up the fact that we all get used to some things that don't work, right? But we just accept the status quo. And this kind of goes hand in hand with having children and breathing, right? and or breathing. That if you're a person walking this planet, there are certain things that you just adjust to, right? And it isn't until somebody points it out to you or things get to a bubble point where you go, wow, this really isn't working for me. What am I going to change, right? And when you think about it, when people have neurotypical children and the children are born and they're so cute and they're wonderful and they poop their diaper and you change the diaper, right? And in the beginning, it's a little overwhelming. It's like, wow, I got to change this diaper with the first child. I got to change this diaper a certain number of hours. But then you get used to it. You get used to changing diapers because you know you're in for a long haul of at least a year of changing poopy diapers, right? So you kind of settle into it, but there's an expectation that the day will come when the poopy diaper thing will change, right? And so you're moving towards that date now, and then there's the difficult time in which you try to say, okay, now is the time we're going to target this, and there's always a bumpy period. Doesn't matter whether the child's neurotypical or otherwise, right? But what happens, there are some things in our life that we don't know what the end date on it is. For toilet training, if you've got a neurotypical child, you got a window of time about, and some people do it at 15 months. Some people do it when a child is 3 years old. So pretty big window there, but there's an expectation. What if there isn't an expectation? What if you settled into the idea, and some of you I know have, that I just don't know if my child is ever going to be potty trained? It's a different level of acceptance that you get to, and it's not that you're happy about it, you're not content with it, but you have other things that you're focusing on, and you get into a place where you say, okay, well, we just have accepted that this thing that's going on is what it is. Maybe every once in a while you make an attempt to try to change it, but if it isn't successful, you go, no, it's just the way it is. And yet we have experts that come in and tell us over and over and over again, toilet training is one of the easiest things that they can do for all of our kids on the spectrum. Literally all of them can have potty training intervention and get to the point where they do not need to wear a diaper or a pull-up. It's pretty amazing, right? And so then I think let's take that knowledge and apply that to all the things going on in our home. We have this beautiful family, and one of the things that they've started to accept at this point before therapy started is that this child eats bananas, but he finds them aversive, right? It's a wonky thing, but it makes sense within your house after a while, right? It just is one of those things that check your database, because we all have something like that we go, wow, this really isn't working for me, but we've kind of accepted it, that this is how this works. We were just talking to Yolanda Baker about filing and tax file. There is a mound of stuff on my counter right now, in my kitchen counter. I promise you, it's not a filing system that's working for me, but on a certain level, I have accepted that this is how we do the filing of the receipts, at least an interim filing of receipts. There's nothing about it that's working for me. So what about with children when they have challenging behavior? At what point do we accept and go, okay, this is the challenging behavior and this is what we're stuck with? Right? Because we've all been in that moment at least once. And when do we move out of that? And how do we move out of that? Well, one of the things that I learn over and over and over again from the A word is that we move out of it very slowly and systematically. So here is this child who has had all these feeding issues and finds bananas aversive, but it's by no means the only thing that he finds aversive. And how do they get in the 8 or 9 months that they've been working with him up to this point, how do they get him from there to somebody who's drinking things with a straw, right? That's huge, huge progress. Their life is different than it was a couple of months ago, where everything had to be in a bottle or he was dribbling down his face. Now they've got him drinking from a straw. It's just going to be a hop, skip, and a jump to him drinking out of a cup. How do we get from there? How do we get to the beginning to somebody who's eventually going to be able to eat a banana? Little pieces at a time. Little pieces at a time. And being very mindful of what you're working on and what's important in each individual moment. I love this moment when they're sitting there and he wants the applesauce, right? But they've got the banana and he's having a reaction to it and he's letting them know and he's communicating and he's got behavior and he's slapping the table and, he's making the noises because he doesn't like what's happening. But what he wants is the applesauce. And then there is this brilliant moment when the therapist says, you don't have to eat the banana if you don't want to. What is it you do want? And she's using a very calm tone of voice, and he drops everything. She's waited for a moment when he's not having that reaction and says, what is it you do want? And he says, I want the applesauce, please. And they say, oh, okay, you can have the applesauce. Because the whining and the hitting the table wasn't getting the applesauce, but him asking for it nicely and politely gets him the applesauce. Yeah, we didn't get to the banana that day, but what he learned that day was, if I'm having a fit about the banana, right, it's not the end of the world. All I need to do is say, no thank you, what I want is this. How valuable is that? How valuable is that for the child long term? They get to the banana eventually. He's not going to be a 38-year-old working, in a high-powered job afraid of a banana. But little bits at a time. Little bits at a time. And he's still eating the banana. They just want to get him to the point where he can see a banana and not flip out. But very exciting that they're giving him that replacement behavior of, you say, no, thank you. I don't want a banana. We had a president who didn't like broccoli, but you didn't see him throwing himself in a hissy fit and throwing himself on the floor. He'd say, no, thank you. I don't like broccoli, right? Life goes on. When you can communicate what you want and what you don't want. I love this series, I have to say. And I know I say that a lot, but so much to learn from it. And if you guys haven't watched, if all you're watching is watching with us, I got to tell you, you need to skip ahead a little bit. You need to look at one of the more recent episodes with Jack Riley, because I got to meet him again the other day, and he came in and was talking to me about the cameras and everything, and he can talk a blue streak. And I have to say, it just fills you with the hope for all of our kids. So check out some of the later episodes. And then, for fun, go back and watch the first episode and compare where he was to where he is. And, all children are different, but this is what's possible. One of the things we talk about a lot here, what's possible, because what's possible is amazing and so much more fun than talking about all the things that may or may not be possible. Who cares about that? Let's talk about what's possible. All right, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to be joined by BCBA Board Certified Behavior Analyst Evelyn Gould. We call this segment Making Room with Evelyn, and we're ready for your questions. So if you guys have questions, we'll be thrilled to talk about that. And a little bit later, I'm going to talk a little bit about, you guys have written in and asked, what was Jem's reaction to my bald head? And you guys were asking, what am I going to do? Am I going to do wigs? Am I going to do hats? And I said, I don't know. I got to wait and see what it's like. And I've realized it's cold. That's what it is. It's absolutely cold. And every little shift in the wind, I had no idea how sensitive the tops of our heads are. So that's what it is. And we'll see how I deal with that in the coming days. But for today, it's cold. And that's what I can tell you. And then a little later, I will tell you about Jem's reaction because it was priceless. So stick with us, though. Back with Evelyn Gould after these messages.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Hi, welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Lisa Ackerman. We're here doing allergy-free cooking, and I brought my sister with me today.
Jamie Davis, thanks for having me.
A lot of people are asking about a allergy-free breakfast, and breakfast can be full of crap. You know,
When it's
breakfast,
full of crap
cereal.
and it's hard to do, we
Yeah.
don't have time in the morning, we're in a hurry.
We're going completely nut-free. The recipe is not...
Personality, we can't do anything
can't
about.
do anything about that. So we're going to start off first with, I'm using sorghum and brown rice flour. I find the texture good, and I've added some flaxseed meal. We talked about that last time, flaxseed meal for poop. Almost every one of our kids has a poop issue. What's next on the recipe is the quinoa flakes, baking powder, cinnamon, and the xanthan gum. It brings the glutinous texture back into the flour. And often what happens with these recipes is they can fall apart. This one holds up nicely. I like it. For the folks that are egg-free, we have a ton of egg replacers. One of those can be the arrowroot starch or bringing back some additional flaxseed. So there's a lot of options to go eggless, but we're going to go egg full in this one. For sweetener, I use the maple syrup. I stay away from refined sugar. What I'm adding now is the coconut milk, maple syrup, and a little bit of the coconut oil. And we're going to add in the raisins, craisins, and chocolate chips at the end. I find that chocolate chips can coax people to eat some really amazing things. When we started, Jeff had 42 food allergies, so we had to get creative in how we cooked. So nuts were a big, big issue. What I like now is that he can tolerate so many more things after start doing this diet. So let me show you how you can deal with this sticky stuff here. You get your fingers really wet, and you can push it down. So my oven has been preheated. It's at 350 degrees. So we're going to just throw this in. Like I said, I like it around 23 minutes, and the magic oven says, I'm done. Looks like, don't you love magic ovens? They're awesome. There we go, pops right out. The texture of these, and it's so pretty. It looks almost like a big chocolate chip cookie, but you actually made it healthy. But you can be my guinea pig. Tell me what you think.
That looks really good.
Doesn't it? So the textures and the colors in there are just beautiful. So the raisins are for you, the chocolate chips are for your kid.
I can't believe it's gluten-free.
I know, right? It doesn't taste like, you know, crap. We're wrapping up another cooking show. If you have feedback, you can email us at autismlive@gmail.com. We're, of course, on Facebook. You could go to facebook.com/autismlive. And, of course, Talkin' Now has thousands of recipes. Join me there, and we can cook some more later on. So thanks for joining us.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Welcome back to Autism Live. Our very special guest joining us in the studio is Evelyn Gould. Welcome.
Hi.
Evelyn is a BCBA, a board-certified behavior analyst. And is this your first time in here with a new desk, with our new?
No, it was like this last week.
Okay.
I think it was the first day last week that I came in.
And you know, a big topic for me right now, and of course we're taking your questions.
Desks.
If you have no sensory things, it's a big topic for me this week because I've been noticing all the things that come when we change things. All of us who are supposedly neurotypical, who are supposed to be flexible and not have sensory issues, and I've been noticing. First of all, we had the time change, and I noticed how everybody was off for like a week. We all kept on saying, "What's wrong?" Everything seems like everything on my desk is in a different place because of the time change, and then we got a new desk, and it's been interesting to watch everybody's reaction to the desk and how it is. I about had a meltdown the first day. I was like, it's a beautiful desk, but where is everything? My computers are different. They're in a different place. I don't know where to put things. And Emily calmed me down. But it's been interesting to see people's reactions. And now, of course, I have a whole other sensory thing going on with my head shaved. And I was warned that it was going to be a big deal. People said, I can't believe you're shaving your head. This is a very big deal. And I was like, it's not that big of a deal. It's not that big of a deal. And they said, no, because, you know, you're going to be really temperature sensitive. And I was thinking this will be great because a lot of times I'm having hot flashes. I know, TMI. But this will be great. And they said, no, you wait till you see. And you can't appreciate until...
Yeah, I mean, I knew because I've had my hair very, very short before, and the difference in temperature and weight. I was really shocked at how, I felt like my head was, really floating around.
But it brings me back to our kids, and here we've been talking about compassion all week long, and about, we want to start with compassion at home, showing compassion for individuals on the autism spectrum, and we say that we are trying to understand their sensory differences, but I'm learning this week that I don't think I have fully appreciated what the sensory issues may be for a person on the autism spectrum. I don't think that I have shown enough compassion for, we were just showing a clip with Jack Riley on the A word, and he's got an aversion to seeing a banana in the peel. There is something sensory going on for him, and he is 100% clear in his behavior that is something he wants to go away. It's aversive. And I think in my head, I keep thinking of it as, and obviously it is something we work on and we desensitize him to. We don't want him to be stuck his whole life that way. But having compassion for the fact that whatever is going on for him in that moment is real.
Right.
And all the time as a parent, it comes up that people will say, well, so, for instance, Jem is upset about something, and somebody will say, well, but he's upset about it, and it's something that he's inappropriately upset about. And my response is, but he's still upset about it, that maybe another child said something and the child meant nothing by it, right? It wasn't their intention to be mean or indifferent or whatever the thing was that they were that Jen gets fatutzed about. And sometimes it seems like the answer from other parents is, well, but what he thought happened isn't what happened. And I'm always left with, it doesn't fix it in his head.
No. Well, we all have the experience of when we're telling somebody how we feel and we're trying to rationalize the fact that we know that maybe our feelings are a little bit inappropriate or irrational, and then having that person tell you shouldn't feel that way, it doesn't make you feel better, and it certainly doesn't get rid of those feelings.
Yes.
It's not very helpful.
And so it seems to me today that maybe, when we start with compassion, it's understanding that people are entitled to their feelings. Whatever if it's a sensory thing or it's their feelings, that we start with and say that, they're entitled to feel the way that they do. Yeah. And we move from there.
And we don't have a lot of control over our physiological emotion responses.
Yeah.
We have very little control over those things, so we do need to be compassionate.
Yes.
With those things, and including with ourselves, we need to make room for that.
Yeah.
And it's not helpful to try and force somebody to not feel something or force yourself to not feel something.
Exactly.
It probably just makes it worse.
Well, and thank you for bringing that up, too, because we talk about this a lot when you're here in the studio, that, we will have emotions, whether they have to do with having a child on the spectrum, or for those of you who are on the spectrum, whether it has to do with that or not, we all have the experience of having an emotion and going, I don't want to feel this way, or I shouldn't feel this way, or I need to stop feeling this way, or the ways in which we language to ourselves about our own emotion, not very compassionate.
Nope. No, not at all. We're not very tolerant of feeling things.
Yeah. I can remember one instance in particular where this comes under the heading of oversharing, but I have shared before on the show that I am somebody who can lean towards obsessive compulsive, and I went through a very bad time where I was obsessive compulsive, and I was having panic attacks, and I could not leave my home for a period of time when we were working our way through autism. Terrible, terrible panic attacks. And it wasn't until, and I had cognitive behavioral therapy to help me to work through that, and it wasn't until we were sitting in a room with the therapist, and she said, what do you think might be causing this? And I was like, I don't know. I have no idea what would be causing this. And she said, really? Because you seem really smart. I think that you might be able to figure it out if you wanted to. Maybe you don't want to, right? And I finally was able, through talking it with her, to figure out how terrified I was about my son moving into the world and all the things that could go wrong, because he had started going to school. And instead of dealing with those feelings, because I couldn't fix them, I had taken that energy and put it on every other little obsessive thing. And when I realized it in that moment, it was amazing. It was like somebody could just turn the lights on in the room. But I in the moment, I had to say, I am terrified for my child. The phrase that I used was, I want to duct tape him to the wall so that nothing bad ever can happen to him. And I welled up, and in that moment, I felt all the emotion that I had been pushing to other things. And I remember sitting there and saying, I don't want to feel this way. I don't want to feel this way. Somebody do something. Feed me something. Let's talk about baseball. Anything, because I didn't want to feel those feelings. And I'm sure that we've all had at least a moment where we've said, I don't want to feel the way I'm feeling.
I think sometimes we get so caught up in avoiding feelings that we don't necessarily have that moment, that, you know, we bypass the thinking about avoiding it to just avoiding it.
I sure didn't know that I was obsessing about hand sanitizer because I was worried about my son. You couldn't have convinced me. Now I'm like, well, of course, but I had no idea. Took a therapist to help me to see it. But in that moment when we do start to realize, okay, I'm having emotions, and if we are languaging it to ourselves and saying, I don't want to feel this way, what are some things that we can do to survive that moment without taking that emotion and putting it in an inappropriate place?
Or trying to avoid it and struggling with it. Because the problem, if you waste your energy trying to struggle and avoid something that's just inevitable, emotions are inevitable and we can't get rid of them. They're just going to keep showing up. It's part of being human. If we put our energy into trying to avoid them or putting them somewhere else, or like in your case, kind of trying to take control of it somewhere else. We essentially just prolong the agony, and we're wasting our energy doing that instead of doing things that we care about and being productive.
It's no way to live.
No.
I mean, I know that for sure, that it's no way to live.
I mean, I'm not saying that it isn't okay. Sometimes it is fine to avoid at times. If it's not interfering with other things, it's okay to have a glass of wine every now and again, or to, you know, go for a run to get out of your head, or do certain things. But when it's like chronic like that, where you're just constantly avoiding feeling things, that's going to become problematic. You're probably going to get sick physically in your body. You're going to be spending your energy engaging in avoidance strategies rather than moving towards values and so on. So it becomes problematic.
And there are some schools of thought that say, you know, taking the time to meditate every day and get into that white space where you're not, you know, that's the ultimate in fuzzing out, you know, being in a white space where you're not thinking about anything. That if you, our word for today was antecedent. If you were to do that before the stressful thing, it's almost like an insurance policy that you don't need to do the wasteful finding a way to fuzz out on something that isn't important, that like taking that time beforehand. But sometimes we find ourselves there in the emotion and we didn't get to meditate beforehand. It's hard.
We talk about acceptance. And acceptance just means making room for it. It doesn't mean tolerating and being okay with it. You don't have to like what you're feeling. You don't have to be okay with what's happened. It's not about that. It's not about tolerating something, because then you're still kind of struggling against it. It's just about making room for it, and practicing self-compassion is the big one.
And I do think bringing it to the forefront and looking at, you know, what's happening. You talk a lot of time about, you know, seeing things through the tube, and that sometimes especially when we're having an emotion and a big emotion, are there small emotions? I'm not sure.
I don't know.
But that sometimes, you know, we're only looking at that one little kernel of things, and this idea of making room is allowing for the fact that there's a lot more than that thing going on in the moment. And I love that image in my life, and I have to say that in the last couple of months since we've started talking about that, whenever I have something going on, I try to remind myself in the moment, okay, what's happening right now?
Getting present.
Yes. What's happening right now, and is this the only thing that's happening right now? It's amazing to me.
Like sometimes thinking about, so one of my colleagues the other day was saying, I try to be like, what would a cat be doing? Like, a cat's not going to be torturing themselves about what they did last week or what happened in the past or what's going to happen in the future. They're just in the moment and they're reacting to what's happening. And she's kind of like, I do the, like, what would a cat do? What would my cat do right now? To help bring herself into the moment so she can deal with what is actually happening rather than what's going on in her mind and her fears about other things.
Because cats seem to be content a lot of the time. They're able to hang out and be in their space.
Yep.
They do tend to have like that one time every day. Some people call it their witching hour, when they have to like
crazy time. Mine have several times of that in the day.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I'm allergic to cats, so I haven't spent a great deal of time around cats, but I've always noticed that there's that contentment thing, but there's at least one time a day when they just completely lose it, and not necessarily in a bad way. Sometimes they're just having fun, but they run around like crazy people. Maybe that's something that we should all do. It's like be content all day and just once a day run around like crazy people and get it all out. We kind of do that with Jem from time to time. I will say that when he's got a lot of nervous energy, we went to see a movie recently, and before the movie, he just had all this energy. And we used to do this with him when he was little. I would say, I need you to run back and forth between this pole and this pole 32 times. Some random number. We never have time to do 32, but the people in line were chuckling because he was running back and forth. I think we got to 10 times between these two poles. But then we went in and had a great time at the movie, and he sat there and enjoyed the movie. They have to get their yayas out sometimes. Their sillies that his kindergarten teacher used to call it. She would say, everybody needs to stand up and wiggle and get their sillies out. We don't have enough of that for adults.
I
know. We should have that at work every once in a while. Just a alarm goes off.
I know
and
some
everybody...
people have dance parties.
Yes, I will say that in the building in which we are housed, we're not ever here and live on the air, but there is a department here that on Fridays at a specific time, is it like a 5-minute thing?
I think it is like 5 or 10 minutes.
They have a dance party where they just put on music and everybody stands up and gets their sillies out, which is a good thing to do. And I must say, they seem like a very happy department.
Yeah, they do.
A happy, well-adjusted group of people over there. All right, we're instituting a silly yayas moment here at Autism Live because it might be useful to us. We should take a break because I digress. But when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about compassion and about the fact that I'm choking. So stick with us. Back of you.
Hi everyone, welcome back. It's April, which means it's also spring. And what we're going to be doing today is making our very own chia pets. What's cool about this project, it's an activity that you can revisit with your family as you watch it grow and change. All right, now that I piqued your interest, let's get to it. The materials we'll be needing are water, dirt, arts and craft materials, chia seeds, a container, and nylon. So let's get started. It's super easy. All you're gonna do is you're gonna take an old pair of nylons that you have, you're gonna cut off the toe, and what you're gonna do is you're gonna take some of your chia seeds and sprinkle them at the very bottom. We don't need too much, just a little bit. And then once I've got my chia seeds there, I'm gonna take my dirt and pour that in. And we wanna make sure that we've got quite a bit in there. You want to keep this tail. What this does is acts as a way to soak up the water to feed your little chia plant. So I'm going to take the bottom now. I'm going to tie this into a knot. So now that I've got this little guy, now it's time to decorate him. And you can decorate him however you feel like. What I did is that I made some little features out of felt that I'm going to add to my little guy to give him a face. Now that I've got them all decorated, I'm going to pour some water into my container and make sure my tail is all nice and soaked up in there. And here's my little buddy. I made a mouse, but you can always make whatever kind of creature your child finds super reinforcing. Make sure they like the little animal that you make so they'll want to come back and revisit him. As you can see right now, he's a little ball, but hopefully, keeping your fingers crossed, in a week he'll have some hair. With the snap of my fingers, we're going to go through a week in a few seconds. And oh my gosh, this little guy has changed quite a bit. Can you see how? Yeah, he's got some hair now. You can have your kids describe how this little guy looks to their friends,
And you can even work on body parts by having them label all the features that this little guy has on his face. So let's see, what does he have? He's got eyes, a nose, a mouth, and ears. What do you think will happen to him if I stop watering him? Yeah, he probably won't be growing any more hair if I did that. Well, I hope you enjoyed this activity. I know I did. Tune in next time, okay? And until then, craft on. Bye, guys.
Can you see me? Can you see me flying by your side?
Welcome back. We have a question from somebody, so maybe we'll start with that. It's a long one. Hi, Shannon. Love your new spring style. And before we're done, I'll take it off. But it is just as bald as it can be. But it's cold. I have to say, it's very cold. So anyway, hi, Shannon. Love your new spring style. My question is, am I wrong? I want my child to stay in public school mainstream environment with a full-time aide when there is an opportunity for him to attend an academy for kids with autism. He's going into 4th grade next year, so I'm doubting my decision-making. He has a scattering of skill levels, with mature language being the greatest need. I never know if I'm right. The academy also has typical kids. It's just not in our neighborhood. I'm always second-guessing myself. Thanks for always being so supportive with your views and challenges, with your viewers' challenges, excuse me. Wow. You know, and this kind of comes under the heading of those feelings, when we have feelings about things. And I would love for you to talk a little bit about moral compasses and how when we have things at war with each other, because I don't want to speak for this viewer, but I know when I'm having a hard time, and quite honestly, we just have gone through a difficult time because a new school has opened up close by us, but it's not in our neighborhood. It's a school that's going to center on math and science, my child's 2 strengths, and we had the opportunity, if we wanted to send him to that new school site or stay where he's at. And I agonized over it. I'm still second guessing myself about it. So I can relate in some aspects that, you know, you want to be able to look, and again, I don't want to put words into your mouth, but I wanted to look into a crystal ball and see both scenarios and be told which one was the right one. And anything short of that felt like just sheer terror. Because what if I make a mistake? What if I do something wrong? What, you know, there's going to be information down the road, and if I'd known that, I would have done it differently. And here we have a mom who's got an opportunity to send to a specific, it sounds like an autism academy for kids with autism. It's an academy for kids with autism, and it also has neurotypical kids, it sounds like, but wanting to keep the child in the neighborhood, which I kind of get. So talk to us a little bit about when we're having a conflict, what the moral compass thing is. Explain that to our viewers at home.
Well, essentially, we've talked about it before, is that when you're in a difficult decision-making place, especially when you're struggling with making which decision, that it's helpful to try to get in touch with your compass, which is basically just talking about values and thinking about what you talk about your manifesto.
Yes, my husband and I have our family manifesto, the things, you know, the things that are the most important, what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, so thinking about your values, and that can not just be about your child, it could be your family and your work and the need for different things, and then trying to figure out which value you're going to follow, because the problem is that often there's a conflict of values, so
absolutely
you have to choose which one you're going to make the decision based on, and then just being compassionate and forgiving of yourself. And I don't know what I would do in that situation. It sounds like really impossible, and even if somebody was to get a crystal ball and tell you which was the right decision, you probably still torture yourself about it.
Yeah.
And be like, well, was it the right decision? Why did they think that one was the right decision? And I think you're probably going to just always be wondering.
Yeah.
In that kind of situation.
But I have have to say, you have asked me this before, and Dr. Lisa Coyne, excuse me, was here with us when she was doing the training for the ACT, Acceptance Commitment Therapy, and she was giving me an example, and she had no idea that I was struggling with something personally right that day, but she said, like, for instance, Shannon, what's the most important thing to you? What, when all is said and done, what's the most important thing to you? And I kind of had like a brain short thing, because it was right at the heart of the matter of what I was dealing with that day. And because there was something that I felt like I needed to do that was really, really important to me, that I wasn't spending enough time, because I really want to be able to help other families. And there was something that I just didn't, a place that I needed to go, and I just couldn't. I was like, I need to go. This is important to me. This is so important to me. But the other side of the coin was that I wanted to make sure that I spent enough time with my child. And that's really important to me too. And sometimes those things butt up against each other. And in that moment, she said, what's the most important thing? And what I started to say was helping other people, because it's right up there. But then I welled up and I said, no, the most important thing to me is being a great mom, showing up for my child. And then I was like, because the minute that it was clarified, then I went, okay, that doesn't make the other thing unimportant at all. And I'm not a horrible person if I compartmentalize these things and say they can't always exist in the same space.
It's kind of like, more like things are different sides of a cube, and you're revolving it round, and one has to come round to the front. But that doesn't make the other ones disappear. They're still there. They're just not in view right now, and then you have to move it around. Yes. And then the thing about values is, it is by nature, when you're following values, it's going to feel painful and it's going to be hard, because it matters so much. So, and then often it isn't that clear, and there's other values there. So you are kind of giving up following one to be able to follow another, and so that's going to be very hard.
So if we start by being compassionate to ourselves, and to say that, there isn't a manual somewhere that says what the right answer is in this circumstance for this parent who's writing in saying, I'm not sure. Forgive yourself for not knowing what no one knows.
No. And be compassionate in the sense of, know that you are doing it in the service of a value that's very important to you. Yes. And that's following your compass. Yes. And that's how you should be living your life.
Yes. Now, and then, taking it a step down, because there are lots of things involved with where you send your child to school. And not the smallest of them is how close it is to your home. That certainly plays a factor in it. So I don't think that that's an unimportant thing. But what if, in this instance, if she or he, I don't know whether this is a mom or a dad, is to write down and say, here's what's most important to me for this next year for my child. Would that be a helpful thing to do?
I think that's very helpful. I think anything you can do to clarify what the most important things are for you at this time, for your kid and for yourself and for your family.
Yes. And then, my dad, who was an amazing, great thinker, I used to love to work through problems with him, because he would say, let's get out a piece of paper. And whenever I couldn't make up my mind about something, and he would say, all right, let's put all the pluses on this side, let's put all the negatives on this side, and you'd spend a great deal of time doing it, right? And then my dad would take the paper and he would turn it over and he would say, now, knowing all that, what's your gut say? Because sometimes there's information that can't fit on that paper.
Right.
And that's what he would say to me. So what does your gut say? And he would make me explain it in words, what my gut would say, and then he would crumple up the paper and say, I think you already know what you want to do. And it's going to be hard, and there are going to be times that you're going to wonder whether this was right, but your gut is telling you something, and let's not try to second guess that. Kind of amazing that he would do that. Now, I don't know that always works.
I think sometimes it can work. I think sometimes just even doing the pluses and minuses works for some things. But when it's something where it's really a difficult decision that is very values based, it's going to be. It may not be clear and easy. But I think that gut feeling is essentially the values part. Yeah. And that's what really, really matters. And just knowing that it's going to be hard. There probably isn't a right answer, like you said. And there's lots of different ways to move towards your values. There's no right way or wrong way or.
And I think here's the other part of it is that you can sit down and be as rational as possible and say, well, in the best of all possible circumstances, here is, according to my values, here is what I should want to do. But if your gut is still saying no, I think it's worthwhile to ask why. Because sometimes it's just from fear. And then if you look at the fear and say, well, what really is the fear here? And if it's something that you can deal with, then maybe you move past it in that moment. But sometimes there's something you just can't put your finger on. That you go, I don't know why. I know that on paper I should do this, but I'm not gonna. My gut says no. And I'm a firm believer in honoring that. Especially when it's a parent, because while I think often we're wrong when we're working on old circuitry about our children, I think that there's something instinctual about our children deep inside us that nobody else can beat. I love having a BCBA to work on something with, right? And to work through and say, okay, why is this happening and all of these things? But I think, there are some things that a parent's gut, and I know you and so many other BCBAs who are very interested in what a parent is going through that value that as well. So I wish that there was just a carte blanche answer that either one of us could give this parent, but I don't think it exists.
And I think the mindfulness stuff that you were just talking about, like bringing yourself in the moment and the kind of meditative type stuff, I mean, there's many different ways to be mindful, but that can help you get in touch with those gut feelings that are there and you're not really sure what they are, and that's very helpful. Those are the things that guide you, and they probably are values driven. And so, because there are so many different factors at play here that, like, if you and I were sitting down and having a conversation about this, I would say, what is it about the academy that isn't singing to you? Is it other people's perceptions? Is it that he'll go through a period of transition of going to this new place and you're not sure? Or is there some other thing that's going on? What is it that's stopping you? And I don't know about you, but when I get to a point where somebody can ask me those questions and I can language them, it all starts to like fit into pieces. And I go, oh, you know what really bothers me about this is this. And I did make the decision for now. I mean, who knows, I could change my mind next week, but I made the decision that my son is going to stay at his school for now. And a bunch of parents were asking me about this last Thursday and saying, why? That surprises me. That doesn't seem like a you thing to do at all. But that's what my gut said. My aunt always used to say to me, there is no bad decision. You can't make a bad decision. It's always the right decision in that moment. So and that always helped me. I was like, okay, well, I can't make whatever decision I make is going to be the right one for me right in this moment. So and you work with either thing, you're going to have challenges, right? Absolutely. It's going to happen, and you work with whatever the challenges are, and you face whatever comes up. I think you're right in that it's very helpful to try to figure out what your fears are about the decision. So maybe like getting in touch with the values and figuring out what those gut feelings are telling you, and are you not wanting to make a decision because you're fearful about something that isn't really the reason why you should not make that decision, right? Or is your gut telling you, no, this is not right for my child. So figuring that out is helpful. And it isn't always instant. Sometimes you need to sit with it for a while and turn it over a bunch of different times, but be gentle with yourself while you're turning it over. Always. I don't know why, but as parents, sometimes we really feel like we should instantly know. And others will treat us that way. I love taking my child to the doctor, and the doctor will say, when did this start? And I say, well, what I remember is this, and I always feel guilty, like I should know exactly. Like I should have, noticed this moment and written it down and noticed it on the clock. But there were 18 other things going on then, Cutting ourselves some slack. You have a lot going on. But what I love is that you talk about what's the greatest need, that the greatest need is mature language. And if in fact, if that's the greatest need, if you look at both of these places through the filter, which one do you feel like is going to give you
is going to fulfill that need. What you may find, what I have found many times, is that I say, well, the most important thing is this. Until then, I put it through that filter and I go, no, you know what? Wait a second. The most important thing is this. That's the second most important thing. But wait a minute. The most important thing is that he's safe, right? Yeah. Because sometimes that's what it comes down to for me. Yep. I go, no, the most important thing is that he's learning and that he's doing this, and because of course. And then I remember, wait a second, no, the most important thing is that he's safe. That trumps the other one. And then when I realize that, I go, oh, this is what's getting in my way.
Yeah. I mean, I certainly relate to that, and a lot of times when I'm making decisions about myself, as I think something's the most important thing, and then I'm like, oh wait, my well-being is probably more important. Yeah. When I've made big life decisions, I've kind of been intellectualizing everything and thinking, oh, for my career, for this or that, or rest of it, and then I have this niggly feeling, and I don't want to do what seems like the right thing I should do, and then I realize, oh yeah, my well-being, that's why I'm having this gut feeling of like, that's not the right place for me to go to, or that's not the right thing that I should do right now. Yeah. It's like, oh yeah.
Our brains are so amazing, and nobody is able to completely map all the things that a brain can do. And we know that there are things that we get on a level that we can't language. Our brains pick up so much information about places and people, and then we have reactions to them, and we don't always know what it is. We can't always language them, but I do think it's good information.
It is, and then it's also good then back to the mindfulness stuff, to like really spend time just being and figuring out what is this thing that I'm feeling, and identifying those emotions is really important, because we kind of put those aside because we're too busy talking to ourselves about stuff. Yeah.
And I wonder too, if your child has enough receptive and expressive language, talking to them about what, I'm not saying that's the be all end all, about whether the child wants to stay at their school or go to the other one, because a lot of times kids don't know, but it can't, it might be helpful to you to at least have a little bit of a conversation and get a feel from them. I was sharing with Evelyn earlier that I always have a hard time leaving my son with a babysitter, but he now asks for the babysitter and says, please, would you leave and leave me with a babysitter, right? And that takes away some of my fear. It gets rid of some of my thing and reminds me he's okay with this. It is moi who is having the issue. So anyway, well, thank you so much and we were going to talk more about compassion, but we're out of time for that. So, but we'll continue to talk about compassion and how we teach compassion to our kids in the weeks to come. Thank you so much for being here. It's such a pleasure always to have the opportunity to sit and talk with you. And we're going to take a break, and we'll be back after these messages.
Monica Holloway is a critically acclaimed author, speaker, and activist. She is also an autism mom. Her son Wills was diagnosed with autism at the age of 3. Now, at the age of 15, Wills is a high school freshman, attending a mainstream school.
I'm in a brand new school. I'm in a great school that I love, and I'm really happy there. I made friends pretty quickly on the first day, and something interesting happened to me on the first day.
Tell me.
We were doing an art project with fabric markers, and there was a little label on it that said, squeeze for best results. Okay. And so I squeezed it and it exploded all over the people at my table.
Oh no!
And we were all covered in little blue dots.
I asked Wills how he describes autism to people.
I say that I have Asperger's syndrome, which is a slight form of autism. It doesn't make you any different. It really doesn't. It's just there, and it just kind of makes you who you are.
I asked Wills what he thought of the Sandy Hook shooter's actions being linked to autism.
Please, just don't be scared of autism. If somebody has autism, don't be scared of them. Chances are they're not violent. They're just like you or me.
Monica is a proud mom with good cause. I asked her to describe Wills in 5 words.
Generous, curious, funny, sensitive, loving.
We had a chance to talk about the Sandy Hook massacre and how Monica heard the news.
On Friday, when the shooting happened in Connecticut, I was in my car, and my husband Michael called to tell me what had happened. And I was in a state of shock, as I think we all were, but that many children. And I felt I guess a mind can't take in that kind of information without feeling nauseous. I felt it go from here all the way down my body. I started calling everybody I knew to tell them I loved them, and I was thinking about them, and I just wanted to be with the people that I knew. I started hearing more and more information come on the news about this shooter having Asperger's or being autistic. And then I started hearing things about, well, does autism cause violence? And I was in a whole other level of shock. Never in a million years would I think that somebody might associate us and my son's face with the face of violence just because he has Asperger's. And I've seen bad days and good days, and that's what kills me, is like there was not a day bad enough to ever make me think that he or any of his friends could ever be violent. The only thing that made me even feel a little bit better, to do something to help educate. And so we've started a campaign on my Facebook page, Cowboy and Wills. It's called I Am the Face of Autism. And please post a picture of yourself. It can be your child, your friend with autism. Let's put these beautiful faces of these people with autism on to wipe out the face of this murderer. Let's put our faces in front of his.
That was the amazing Monica Holloway, who was here with us yesterday as I shaved my head. We've been participating in Compassion in Action. We're asking all of you to take some action to show compassion towards another person. Yesterday, I did shave my head live here on the show to show compassion for Ryan Oaf. He's a young dad who is... He's got cancer and he's fighting, and he's an amazing young man. I did get the opportunity to speak to him after the show for the first time. I've never met Ryan, but what an amazing, inspirational young man he is. You can find him on Facebook under Fight for Ryan to see how and follow Ryan's story and see how he's doing. But I was going to take the thing off so you can see. It's so cold, though. I can't even tell you how cold it is. And somebody had written in and wanted to know what my son's reaction was. Now, he has known for a great deal of time. He has known since December 16th that I was going to shave my head. And I think he kept hearing about it and thinking that it probably wasn't going to happen. And he had seen the pictures of me with a bald cap, liked somebody had done me as the genie from Aladdin, enjoyed all of that. But it was different when Mom came home yesterday with her head bald. He immediately laughed and thought it was funny and then wanted to touch it, and then he decided he didn't like it. And we had many discussions about it throughout the evening, and then it was time to read. We went to, and we were in his room, laying on his bed, and we were reading, and he said to me, I really think you need to get some wigs, Mom. I don't like it. And then he said the phrase that he knows will get my attention. He said, it's very embarrassing. And he's been using this term a lot lately, and he's been using it incorrectly just when he wants me to stop doing anything, right? Because he sees that this term, if he says, Mom, it's embarrassing to me, I stop immediately whatever it is that I'm doing and we have a discussion, right? So he's using it all over the place to get me to stop doing whatever I'm doing. Very intelligent little boy. So I said to him, okay, wait, let's talk about this. What do you mean by embarrassing? Are you afraid what your friends are going to think? And he said, well, yes, but that's not really it. And we pared it down, and I said, what's it making you feel? He said, it makes me feel kind of funny in my stomach. And I said, do you think maybe it's that it's something that we need to get a little used to? It's very different. It's different for me, too. And I told him about walking by a mirror yesterday and having forgotten for a minute. My head was very involved in something that I was doing, a document that I was writing. And then I walked by a mirror, and I literally jumped 5 feet because I thought I'd seen a ghost with this white thing on my head. Literally, like something out of a bad sitcom. And I told him about that, and we laughed about it. And I said, how about if we take just a little bit of time to get used to it? Besides which, it's already growing back in. Could we see and understand that things change sometimes, and that when things change, we feel funny inside. And sometimes it feels scary. and we want to put a word on it and we say bad, but maybe it's just that it feels funny. One of the examples that I've used for him is that riding on a roller coaster, it makes you feel funny. I think that it makes you feel bad. He thinks that it makes you feel good. So, you know, different perspectives. We always like to talk about that. We did want to show you, have we got time, Emily? It's just 35 seconds. We want to show you the time lapse of yesterday. So if you missed it, here it is really quickly from start to finish. And there was the whole show for you, and I believe 36 seconds. It was a pretty amazing day, and we have to thank again Lorenzo from the Onyx Salon in Sherman Oaks, who did a great job getting it down to the... it's already starting to come back in. That's how fast my hair grows. And also Mark Christopher Lawrence, the fabulous actor and comedian who was here and did the bulk of the work. We have to thank him. And then also Nancy Alspaugh Jackson for being here to co-host, because if it had been left up to me yesterday, it would have been watching paint dry. And Monica Holloway, who was here, author of Cowboy and Wills, and of course Alex Plank from WrongPlanet.net. What a wonderful group of people. And also we have to thank all of the people who work behind the scenes, the entire marketing department, of course, Emily Goodwin, a fabulous technical director extraordinaire. She is MacGyver and Martha Stewart rolled into one. We could not have done this without her. And also to Suzanne Ushinsky, who comes up with the best ideas for the things for us to do and always makes it look good. So we thank all of them and many, many more on the marketing team for the fabulous things that they did. And I would ask all of you to include Ryan Oaf in your prayers. That's the one thing that he asked when I spoke to him yesterday. So please include him in your prayers and let us know what you're going to do for Compassion in Action. We'll be back tomorrow. Until then, please give your kiddos a hug from me. Bye-bye for now.